Now I'm going to come down to the bottom left-hand corner where it says Create a New Design. This is if I want to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to click on that, and it will bring up a design page. Now we're going to go through very basics tonight. As the webinars progress, they will get more and more advanced. You'll get to hear a lot more teachers than just me or Walt. You're going to get the benefit of a lot more of our educators on this MDQ webinar. Now, the first thing we want to look at is we want to look at this row of icons right across here. We're going to talk about those first because that's actually how we get started. Now, the first one I want to talk to you about is our block library. That's your first icon right here. Now, I am going to left mouse click, and this is going to allow me to select a block. Now, this is like a color book page. We have over 2,200 choices. So chances are any block that you want to work with is already contained in the block library. I'm going to click down just a little bit just to give you an idea of what's in here. Now, I want to explain. All of these blocks are vector art, which means they are absolutely perfect. The artwork is perfect. So you can see that you can go through these on your own and look at all the different blocks. Now, I'm going to come up to the word basic, and I want you to come down and look at the bottom left-hand corner. You'll notice it says size. Now, right now, of course, it says inches because I am in inches, and that's pretty much how we think in the quilting world. I can drop down the little arrow. I can pick a pre-done size here, or I could click custom if I needed to make it a different size. We're going to go ahead with the 8x8 block. Then I will come over to the right-hand side, and I will left mouse click on the OK once I've selected my block. I'm going to select the diamond square. You can see that I have selected diamond square, and it is highlighted. So I will go to my OK button, and it will come up on the screen. Now, the way MDQ has been designed is when it comes up, it already comes up selected. We can tell it's selected because we have all of these diagonal pink lines. I am going to click outside the block with a left mouse click to deselect that. Now with it deselected, I'm going to start playing with the individual patches of fabric. So think of sewing your triangle to your diamond to create a block. Now I am going to select the center patch of fabric to start. Now as I have left mouse clicked on it, it has selected. I want you to come over here in your properties box, and I want you to notice that we are working with artwork. It always tells us what we're doing. Now notice the icon that you see right here. It matches my artwork icon up on my top toolbar. So you can see that that also lets us know, Kathy, you're working with artwork. I'm going to go ahead, and then I want you to go below that, and I want to show you your sequence view. Now, a lot of times in our sequence view, it makes it much easier for us to select items. Now, I want you to notice, if I left mouse click on the plus, it shows me under the Floriani Color 352, I have artwork, and it selects just the center light blue piece of artwork. If I come down to my next item, click on it, you'll notice I have the 4 corner triangle pieces. I can select them individually, or I could select the entire color and get all 4 at the same time. So don't forget, a lot of times with your sequence view, it makes it much easier for us to select something on our design page. We're going to go back to our center block. Now we're going to start looking at these icons across the top. Our next icon up here is our texture. Now we can actually audition or virtually quilt this on screen before we've ever stitched on our block, which makes it really nice because you already know if it's going to look hideous or wonderful. So I'm going to left mouse click, and you notice it brings up all my textures. Now those of you that have Floriani Total Control Professional, you are used to seeing these textures. We have added it into My Decorative Quilter, so you can come in here and have a lot of fun with your textures. So we're just going to select a texture. I try to pick a different one every time so I can play. So I'm going to select texture 138 by left mouse clicking on it. Then I'm going to come down and I'm going to left mouse click on OK. Now notice my block has filled with texture. Now also, the background has gone away because I have converted that piece of vector art into stitches now. So now I no longer have artwork in that spot. I have an actual stitch that will embroider out or will stitch out on your long arm. Now remember, for those of you that have long arms, a long arm can stitch a straight stitch. It cannot stitch a satin. Now that I have selected this, I'm going to change the color because it's going to be very pale for y'all to see. So if we come down to our bottom left-hand corner, you will notice that across here, and I'm sorry I can't draw this real straight, you can see that we have all of these colors to choose from. In order to change the color, what we are going to do is put our cursor on the color we want. In this case, I'm going to change it to color number 2. I will right mouse click. Notice I now have a black box around that color, letting me know that's what I've selected. And if I click away from my block, you will see that the color has changed. I'm going to go back and select it. And I want you to look in your sequence view again. Over here on the bottom right. When I click the plus sign, notice it no longer says artwork. It's now a complex fill. So that's how you know you have converted it from artwork. It will no longer show up as artwork. So let's select that. Now whenever you create in Floriani, if any pattern you pick in here, it is fully rescalable. Now what that means to you is right here is my pattern link in my properties box. I can change that and the pattern will hold its integrity. The stitch length will drop at the right time. So if maybe I wanted to open that up a little bit and make it larger, now remember, the pattern length is always in millimeters, not in inches, because if I look at something at 3 millimeters, that makes sense to me because of my sewing machine. If I see 0.12 inches, that really doesn't give me understanding. So with this at millimeters, I'm going to go ahead and say apply, and now I have opened that pattern up, and since it is rescalable, it held its integrity. So I might like that pattern a little larger. Let's go back to our upper toolbar because no quilting program would be a quilting program without stippling. So we're going to come up to the upper left-hand corner, and we are now going to left mouse click on our stipple icon. And you can see it automatically stipples. Now what's important in this is I want you to notice the density. It is at 3 millimeters. Now 3 millimeters is approximately 1/8 of an inch, which means between here and here, it is 1/8 of an inch. So that's not very much. I want to tell you, never go smaller than 2.5. And if you go that small, you're probably going to want to change your stitch length. Now, what we're doing here is if you want to really, really make something pop and you want to stipple really tight around it, micro stippling, we're going to probably bring our stitch length down to about 2.5 as well. That would be micro stippling. I don't recommend any smaller because a lot of times your thread is going to start looking a little fat in here. Now, I am more the meandering type. I'm going to go back to my stitch length of 4, and that's a good stitch length because if we are stitching through batting as well as our top and backing, you don't want your stitch length too small. But now maybe I want to meander here because I'm in a hurry and I want it to open up. So now I have stipples in here. I will select it again. Let's go ahead and go back up to our upper toolbar, and we're going to come to our next one. And this I really like. This is advanced stippling. Why should our stuff have to look like everybody else's in the class? So again, with My Decorative Quilter, it gives you a whole lot of options to make it your quilt. Now, we have got all kinds of gorgeous advanced stipple in here that you can play with. And as you can see, we've got a whole lot of stuff. I'm just going to come down and just grab one at random that I haven't tried and say, okay. Again, pattern length. We have complete control over our pattern length. So I'm going to open that up a little bit, and as you can see, we can play. I also want you to notice in the properties here, under this pattern, we've got advanced stippling under the fill type, and then under the pattern, I can also drop this down and look through those advanced stipple stitches as well. So I could come right in here and say, I want to pick this instead and apply. It's held its pattern length because I've gone ahead and picked it through the properties box. If I went back to my advanced stipple icon and picked a new one and said, okay, it's going to go ahead and default back to the 15 millimeter pattern length that the program defaults to. So remember, you want to keep looking at the size here. Use your properties box to change your advanced stipple. Now the next one we're going to go to, we're going to skip Echo Quilting for now, but we will come back to it. Now we're going to go to contour. Now when we select contour, it's going to contour the shape of the fill. In this case, it will be that diamond. So I'm going to left mouse click, and you can see it has contoured the shape. Again, same principle. You can change the spacing in between that contour to go ahead here in your density. Now the next one I really like. This is Shape Echo. Now I can pick Shape Echo, and I can get it to echo any of these shapes in this block. Now I normally pick this little star because that's a diamond shape. Let's try something different today. You're never supposed to try these on webinars, but we're going to do it. So with this Shape Echo, now you can see that is way too close. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to open this up and I will apply it, and you can see how it echoes that shape out to the edge of the block. Now the fun thing about Shape Echo is will automatically default from the center of the shape to the edges. But what if I want to be more creative? What if I have something else in my mind? I'm going to come over to my left-hand toolbar. We have a toolbar down the left-hand side, and I'm going to select my second tool down, which is my Shape tool. So I'm going to left mouse click on my shape, and I want you to notice I get all the control points for this shape. Notice my cursor. It just looks like an arrow, just like a cursor. In all of our Floriani software programs, we realize as we get a little older and our eyes become mature, we have a little bit of a problem clicking on little bitty spots. So what we've done is, on our cursor, as you close in on one of these shapes, for instance, are these control points. For instance, my start. When I get close, notice I don't have to get right on the green dot. The green dot jumped on my cursor. So if I hold down my left mouse key, I can move that anywhere I wish. The corners, blue squares, are your outline control. Notice as soon as I get close enough, it jumps on my cursor, so I can actually change the shape of the outline if I wished. What I'm interested in is the pink center. As soon as I get close enough, it's gone onto my cursor, and I'm going to move this. What if I want this to echo from here? So now the center is there, and it's echoing up. So you could have a lot of fun with this by moving that around to give you a different look. Think if I put it here, and then I put a couple of these blocks together, how nice that would look radiating out. Lots of fun. Now that we've looked at that, we're going to move on to our next set of icons up here, and these are our little worms. Now this is my gold worm. Notice again in Floriani, we try to color code and shape everything to kind of help us. I like building on old skills. Red circle is an old skill. Nobody out there thought about the word red circle. But when I say your run stitch icon, that kind of sometimes gives us a little pressure. Let's just click on our gold worm. Now when I click on this, I want you to think stitch in the ditch. What has happened is this, whoops, let me go over here and select it. This is now run along here, so stitch in the ditch. Now that is absolutely fabulous if you are a very precise quilter, which by hand quilting I can be precise. Machine quilting with me is not so good. So I am more interested in my little green worm, which is my motif run. Now if I left mouse click on this, those same motifs you saw under texture, I can now select and ask them to run along the edge, which is wonderful because this will hide a multitude of sins. If my piecing isn't exactly perfect, this is what I'm going to put over my stitch in the ditch, because then everybody won't realize that my line wasn't exactly straight, or it gives us a nice decorative effect. Now my last one in my worm series here is my steel. Now steel is S-T-E-I-L, is the German word for row or column. This is a balanced satin. So I'm going to left mouse click on my steel stitch, and that is going to run along. Again, it's a multitude of thin hider if your piecing wasn't perfect, but also if I was going to put a design in the center of this block, by having this satin stitch outline, I could really make that top. So I'm going to leave this here for right now, and we're now going to look at our triangle pieces. Now again, if I come to my sequence view, on the bottom right-hand corner, I could come in here and I could select one. I could hold down my control key and select two of them. Maybe I want to put one pattern on these corners and another pattern on the other. Or I can just select all of it to select all four corners. And that's what I'm going to do for today. Now with this, I'm going to go back to my shape echo. Now I'm going to grab that one, and where we had picked one of these other shapes, right now I want to pick the circle. And I'm going to say, okay. Now this looks fairly hideous. It's very close together. Even if I portion it out a little bit, it just looks flat out surprised now. But what I actually want to do is I want this circle to echo around the entire block. So with these four corners selected, now remember, again, they are no longer artwork, are they? I have turned them into stitches. I have got a little icon on my top toolbar right here. It looks like a paper clip. This is my combine icon. So I'm going to left mouse click on combine, and it will now combine all those corners into one. so that my circle actually echoes or contours all around. So my shape contour will now make it perfectly around the 4 corner patches. So I really love that look. Now we're going to leave this behind, and we're going to look at some other options in our My Decorative Quilter. Now you have seen how easy it is to select a block and run through some, not all, but some of the options. Now I'm going to come down my left-hand toolbar, and I'm going to come down to my Load Backdrop tool. Now the reason I'm coming here is because we have what I call the box of blocks. You know how you took those block of the month classes and you did the first 3 months and they're in a box? Then you took a technique class and you did that one and you're going to go home and do the other 74 blocks and they haven't quite made it. So you've got a lot of single blocks. Well, I realized that I had a whole lot of Hanukkah gifts for my daughter-in-laws with little table runners, pot holders, trivets, by using up these blocks, because now I can have a ball in my embroidery hoop. So by clicking on my backdrop tool, I can load any of those blocks. I'm sorry, I need to get a new piece of paper. I apologize. Got to come up to the top and get a new piece of paper, a new design screen. So I'm going to left mouse click on my new icon. Then I'm going to come down to my backdrop tool. And I am going to pull in a block that we have taken a picture of. Now again, we just took a camera and took a picture of one of the blocks that you have. Now the first thing is this isn't straight. And a lot of times we don't get our blocks when we take a picture quite straight. But we have given you a horizon tool. Now I can either right mouse click for hidden treasure, and you can bring up the Define Horizon, or over on our block, our backdrop tool over here on the left-hand toolbar, we have a little arrow. If I click on my arrow, it's going to allow me to define horizon. Now, this means I'm going to hold down my left mouse key. I'm going to start at my upper left-hand corner, and I'm going to hold and drag. You see how I'm dragging this? But what I'm going to do is match the crooked edge of the block. Now, I could have done it vertically. I can do it horizontally. It doesn't matter. When I let go, notice it straightened the horizon up. So now my block is straight in the software. Now, here's our next challenge. If you have taken a picture of that block, number one, it's not necessarily to scale. It's not the actual size of the block. But the other issue we have, I'm going to change the background color real quick, just quickly so you can see this. Notice when I took a picture, I got some background in it. So if I look in my properties box, it tells me that the width of this is 9.7 inches and the height is 9 inches. Now it is measuring from here to here. It's measuring height and width, including your background image. Everybody with me? So what I need to know is I need to be able to tell it how far it actually is from here. I'm trying to draw a straight line. I'm just not having real success. To here, because that's the actual size that I've measured my block. So I'm going to lay my block down, and I'm going to take a measuring tape, and I'm going to measure from point to point. Once I know that, I can right mouse click on it, define scale, and now I'm going to drag this from here to here. Now when I measured this block, it was 8.25 inches. So when I say okay, you notice up here I'm 9.35. But from here to here, I'm 8.25 inches. So it did exactly what I asked for the actual fabric of my block. Now this is a wonderful tool in here. And I apologize. I grabbed my ruler to show you it had the same measurement. Your ruler is on your left-hand toolbar. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to embellish this block. The first tool I want to use is my embellishment tool. I think this is my favorite tool in the My Decorative Quilter software because I love how it looks when it has that beautiful quilting done on it, and I'm not good at that. So by left mouse clicking, you can see we've got all these beautiful embellishments. Now we have 201. Now realize these are all single stitch, so you can do it in your embroidery hoop, or if you are a long arm quilter, of course we have your format, so you could do this on your long arm as well. But you can see we've got all kinds of fun things in here that you can work with. I'm going to come down and I'm going to select Native. Now notice in each one of these we have a square, a circle, a rectangle, and a triangle. So think of a square block, a medallion, maybe a border, maybe a quarter. So we've given you all the components of each one of these categories. Now I'm going to select the square and I'm going to say OK. Now notice it has come in on top of my block. Now this block is a backdrop. It's the picture of my block, so anything I do on top of it, when I put this block in the hoop, this is going to stitch on top of it. Now the first thing I want to do, because I have a star here, I want to rotate this. So along your top toolbar, you'll notice here are your rotate icons. So I am going to rotate this. Now with it rotated, I want to make it a little larger. Now if I knew exact size, I could come over here to transform, and I could put the exact height and width I want this. But chances are, if I created this block, it's not going to be pieced perfectly anyway. So I'm going to just kind of pull it to where I think it looks good. And I can just move this around until it's where I think it looks nice in here. Now I am happy with this, and I'm going to click away from it, and I'm going to come down. On my left-hand toolbar, I have a 3D icon. I want you to notice everything we do in Floriani is on one screen. I'm never leaving this screen to do anything. I'm going to left mouse click, so that gives me the 3D view of our block. Now I'm going to zoom in because I want you to see something here. We have put an artwork outline around all of our embellishments for you. So we're going to fit this back to screen, and to fit it to screen, I use my zoom or view box up here at the top, and I drop down the arrow and tell it to fit. Now what I'm going to do is I want to fill in all of this area of the block. I might want to stipple. I might want to shape echo. I might want to do an advanced stipple or contour. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to my artwork tool. Whoops. Let's fit this to screen. Come up to your artwork tool on your top toolbar. Now, this artwork tool is in all of our Floriani programs. This is a commercial feature. So at this point in time, we are the only program available in the home market that has an artwork tool, and it allows you to do so much. I'm going to click on the down arrow, and I'm going to select the rectangle. I want you to notice there's a rectangle stuck to my cursor, so I am aware that I'm going to draw an artwork rectangle. Look in your properties. It says, Kathy, you're working with artwork here. Artwork icon, artwork icon. I'm going to come at the top corner of this block, and I'm going to draw a rectangle around it. I'm going to match my block exactly and let go. Now look in your sequence view. Now here we have the artwork that is drawn around our stitching. I'm going to hold down my control key, and I'm going to select the artwork I just created. So I have my artwork around my design and the artwork I just created around the block. And I'm going to use that combine tool again. That paper clip up here on my toolbar. I'm going to left mouse click on it. Now that has combined the artwork, but you can't see it. So I want to make it real clear to you. I'm going to click Fill in my Properties box and say Apply. Now you can see I've actually cut a hole between the edge of my block and around my center embellishment. So now all of this is available to do something with. So I could say I want to stipple it if I wanted to stipple. But what I actually want to do is I want to do some echo quilting. So I'm going to click on Echo Quilting. And what it's going to do is it's going to echo this shape out to the edge of my block. Now, 1/8 of an inch between these is far too close for me. So I'm going to go ahead and change this over here and apply. And I want you to notice something I really like about our echo quilting. I'm going to change the color down here at the bottom left-hand corner. Right mouse click on color number 5. Notice it got the black box around it. Notice it started echoing the shape, but as it gets closer to the edge of the block, it loses that echo, and I love that look. Now, if I wanted it to echo the shape completely to the edge of the block, I'll show you a different way to do that in a moment. Let's turn off our artwork and see what we've got. Now, this is going to stitch out on the top of my block, which is wonderful, except that how do I know where to place that block in the hoop? Because I'm assuming we're talking about a block that is not necessarily at this time in a quilt top. I'm talking about those individual blocks. How am I going to make sure I have perfect placement in the hoop? Well, we have given you on your top toolbar, we have given you placement lines, placement marks. Now, this is another feature that is specific to My Decorative Quilter. The advanced stipple is specific to My Decorative Quilter. The embellishments are specific to My Decorative Quilter. And these placement marks are only in My Decorative Quilter. Now, I'm going to left mouse click on those. And because this is a star, I'm going to put in these marks, number 1, because I might have to stretch and fudge that block a little, especially since I've pieced it, it won't be straight. Then I'm going to go ahead and put in my corner mark. Now I'm going to say OK, and I want you to notice now it has put in the placement line for me. Look over in our sequence view. The first thing it did, it added the placement line prior to stitching the block because it realized that we needed those first. Now let's look at the slow redraw on here. I'm going to fit this to screen. And I want you to watch how this redraws. Now first, of course, it's put in my placement marks. Great. Now that that has stitched onto my stabilizer, and I'm just going to pick one and say we're stitching on wet and on tacky because I want it to wash away when I'm finished. Now I can stick my batting my block down within these placement marks, and now I know when that stitching goes on top, it'll be in exactly the right place. Now the next thing, I've got a problem here. I've got a train wreck because you notice my edges are stitching first. Now if I've got batting everything there, it's all shoving toward the center, and I just had a puckered nightmare in the center. So that's not going to work for me. What we're going to do is look at our sequence view. Now first it says I'm stitching out placement marks. Then I'm going to stitch out that yellow outline or background, and then I'm stitching your center. What we're going to do is we are going to select the background, and we are going to drag it down. Now when I go to slow redraw, there's my placement mark, there's my center, and it stitches out to the edge. So now I'm a very happy girl. Okay, let's move on. Let's get a new piece of paper. And let's come on down back to our backdrop tool. Now, I love applique. And I want to show you how much fun you can have with all the applique you want to do. I like to do things in the hoop. I'm all for the hoop. So let me grab this applique. Now, this is from a book. Now, if you own a book with applique in it, can you scan it or take a picture and put it in here? Absolutely. That belongs to you. Can you scan it and give it to all your friends? Absolutely not, unless they own the book. But in here, it doesn't matter how I want to stitch these things out because I've bought the patterns to stitch them out. Now, we had to give you the ability to create a straight line. This is not a digitizing program. It is an embellishment program. It's a virtual quilting program. It's an audition your stitches program. But we had to give you the ability to create a straight line because you're a quilter, and quilters have to create a straight line. So I'm going to come up to the top toolbar, and I want you to notice we have given you the ability to create a run stitch. It's your backwards black S. So I'm going to left mouse click on that. Now, if I were Walter, just like I say at my seminars, I'd be wealthy with a beard. I might come in here and I might start left mouse clicking to create these points. And when I finished, I would right mouse click and create a line. But I'm not Walter, and I'm not real good at that. So what I want to do is grab my run stitch, and I'm going to come on down to my magic needle. I'm going to left mouse click on it, and notice my cursor turns into a blue needle or wand. I'm going to lay this on the section I want to put the run line around. I'm going to left mouse click on it. And look at how nice that is. It did it all for me. Why would I want to do it myself? Now I'm going to select that. And with that selected, I'm going to tell it I want this to be an applique. So I'm going to come back up to my row of icons, and we're going to go to our applique. Now next to that is applique stitch. So if we wanted to make this an applique stitch, where we use our applique stitch fabric, it will just tear away so we don't have to trim or cut out a pre-done shape, I would pick that. But today I'm going to pick applique. Now when I left mouse click on this, what it's going to do is it's going to convert that run stitch that we just created, it's going to convert it into an applique stitch. And our applique in our My Decorative Quilter is as comprehensive as it is in our other programs. We have gone to a lot to give you top-of-the-line, beautiful applique. Now, of course, the satin stitch, we're all used to that. We could change the width of it. We could change the length. We could change the density. So we have all the control over every stitch we've got in here. But I might want to say this would be an E-stitch, or what you and I call a lot a blanket stitch. I'm going to apply, and now I have a beautiful blanket stitch running around the edge of that shape. How nice is that? Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and say, wouldn't it be nice to audition our fabric prior to stitching out and finding out they look hideous together? There's been a lot of times that I've bought fabrics that look great next to each other on the bolt, but when I put them together in their background and appliques, they don't look exactly as my mind thought. And all of the websites that carry fabric, Moda, My Mind is Blank, but Binnertech, any of those fabrics, you can go to their website and you can select their little JPEG swatches and drop it into your fabric folder. In your manual, and you can get to it, your online manual right now through Help, it will tell you step by step how to do that. Well, I'm going to come over here to my little command icon. And a lot of times I would love to even audition the fabric prior to buying it, or take pictures of your stash. Notice down here it says fabric none. Now I could drop that box down, and there's a lot of stuff that means nothing to me. So I'm going to click on my little etc. or browse box. If I click on my browse box, it's going to show me pictures. That's what I want. Now, I downloaded some fabric to put in here. So I'm going to grab this fabric, open it, and say apply. So now I can even audition my fabric before creating my block. How fun is that? Now I'm going to come back and get this run stitch and my wand, and I'm going to change the color down here to color number 2, and I'm very rapidly, whoops, I don't have my wand, very rapidly I'm just going to left mouse click on my red circle. Then in my sequence view I'm going to select them all at once, tell them to go to applique, and now instead of using a blanket stitch I might want to use one of those pretty motifs, because I don't want mine to look like everybody else's in the class. Now you do have control over your pattern length. I can apply, and now let's turn off our background and see what we've got. Pretty nice, huh? So you can audition your stitches, see what they look like, and come and do it. I want to show you one other thing on here. I'm going to go back to that run stitch with my wand, and I am going to left mouse click on the background. Now what it's going to do is it's going to draw around every single shape. How cool is that? Now with that done, I'm going to select that, and I'm going to go back to this shape echo that I like so much. I'm going to select the circle again. I'm going to let it apply to that background. Now I'm going to go ahead and change my density. With the density change, that's going to give me more space between each line. And I'm going to come in here, and that, for some reason, I did something crazy there. Let's go back to 9, make it a little farther apart, because that's kind of hard on the eye. And I'm going to go back to that shape tool on your left-hand toolbar, and I'm going to get to my center and drag it to the corner. Because I'm thinking I might want to put all 4 of these together and create a nice centerpiece. So you get the idea of what we can do in here with My Decorative Quilter and a simple applique design. Now something else we like to do, and we've always wanted to do, are all of these fun quilt motifs that we've got, or embellishments. Now you may have drawn this out, you may have taken a picture out of a book, but we want this to be a nice quilting pattern to fill a block. Well, what I'm going to do is get that run stitch again, and again I've got my magic wand, or my magic needle. But if I click on this now, it's going to put a run stitch on each side of the black line, because it doesn't know if it's a square, a fire truck, or this line. So what I want to do is I want it to run stitch down the middle. So I'm going to hold down my shift key, and that wand will turn red. So think red for red work. And I'm going to left mouse click. And now what it's going to do is it's going to look at this so it can run along the center of that line instead of digitizing on either side of that line. So let's go ahead and turn off our artwork. How cool is that? Now let me show you what else. With this, I'm going to select it. You can come over here and make this a beam stitch. You could make it standard is 1, 2 ply is 2 runs, and a beam is either 3, 5, 7, or 9, depending on how hand look you want that, how you want it to pop. Let's say I picked 5 or 7. I would probably change my stitch length to 4, and now I'm going to have a much heavier, nicer look when it goes to stitch out on my quilt block with my batting in it and my pretty quilting. All right, let's go ahead, and I want to talk to you very rapidly because we're getting close to time. I can't believe how fast the time goes. I want to talk about what the catalyst was for this program, and I'm going to show you what started My Decorative Quilter. This is a beautiful antique quilt that was done by Kay's great-grandmother. You can see it was done January 20th of 1907. This is an all-wool quilt, and you can see all these gorgeous hand-look crazy quilt stitches. You can see where the people have gone ahead and autographed it. They've dated it. And what was so wonderful about this was the time you got together, you talked about what was going on in the family, and you quilted these quilts together. And these decorative stitches, people were known by their stitch. They'd say, oh, look, Betty Sue worked on this quilt. Mary worked on this quilt. Amelia worked on this quilt. So those stitches were the catalyst. We thought, wouldn't it be awesome if we could have those hand-look stitches and have our embroidery machine stitch them out? The problem with hand-look stitches is they're not perfect. So what we had done is we had these stitches created with their imperfections perfectly. So we will come over here, and I'm going to bring in just a foundation piecing block or a crazy quilt block, and we are going to, for the sake of argument, pretend that we've already got our fabrics in here. Now you can do all of this in the hoop, stitch out your placement lines, stitch your fabric down, stitch it down, right sides together, fold it back. And you can find that in a class, and we will have a webinar on how to do that in the future. But right now, we're going to come in here and get our run stitch. Now remember, I told you we needed to be able to create a run stitch. So I'm going to left mouse click on one end, drag my line, left mouse click on the other end. Now I've got two blue boxes. I will right mouse click to create a run stitch. Now with this run stitch selected, I'm going to come here to my properties box, drop this down, and I'm going to go to crazy quilting. Again, if we want to know what all those stitches look like, push your etc. button. Here are all those gorgeous stitches, and we digitized them with all their imperfections. Maybe it's not as long as it should be. Maybe it's not as smooth as it should be. But we went in there and we absolutely copied those stitches. So if I selected a stitch out of here, say OK, of course I have complete control over the pattern length, and I apply, that has gone along that line. But we wanted to give you even more control, because even if this stitch is imperfect, this one is the same, imperfect, the same. So again, it's going to have a little bit of repetition on our machine. So we wanted to give you more control. So if you come up to the top where you see the spade, drop down the box and select, there's those same stitches. Only now we've given you all kinds of crazy control. I'm going to grab this herringbone and say, okay. Now I'm going to put my cursor and I'm going to drag. So as I drag and rotate, I can go ahead and drop this stitch. Now drag. Now maybe my lines aren't as straight as yours. If my lines aren't as straight, I can kind of follow the line. And notice now that each of these stitches we're dragging them, no two are exactly alike. So now you have got your hand look stitch using your embroidery machine. How wonderful is that? We also gave you borders. Now we gave you 100 different borders in here, and you could take one of these borders and border a block with it, if that was what you had in mind. But actually what I see when I see these borders is I actually see quilt labels. So we could border a block. But what I saw was 100 different quilt labels. So let's go ahead and get a new piece of paper, go back to our borders, and look at how wonderful these are. So we could come in here and pick any border we liked, say OK, and now with that done, it is fully rescalable, so I can make it larger or smaller. But then I've got a text tool here. Now we gave you 50 alphabets in My Decorative Quilter. We gave you alphabets that work well for monogramming. We gave you alphabets that look good for small print, because a lot of times on a quilt label you have to give your entire history. So I could come in here and put my name, put whose quilt this was, put a date, change the size. I can come in here and I've got complete control. So I can come in here and play. And of course, with our lettering in My Decorative Quilter, you've got all kinds of wonderful control. I could make it longer. I could come in here and play with it a little bit. If I wanted to do some fun stuff, I could rotate it, change the kerning. So you have a lot of control over your lettering. Let's go back here. I'm going to delete that border, and let's fit this to screen. I could come in here and I could say, give me some text, and I could put MDQ for My Decorative Quilter. I could pick a font. I don't know. Let's pick Diana. I could change the size, and I can apply that. Then I could come in here and play. Maybe I want to put this and fit it in here and kind of match the corner of my block to go ahead and monogram it. You can see a lot of fun, and we also gave you decor. Because a lot of times, you might just want a little flourish on your block or under your lettering. Again, fully rescalable because it came from My Decorative Quilter. So we can come in here and play a lot and enjoy making this My Decorative Quilter. Now we're down to the last 3 minutes, so I want to go back to that very first block and show you something else. You can bring in design. So if you've got a design you want to bring in here, of course you can do that as well. I'll change the color of that just so you can see it. I'm going to say File, Merge. Now I can come in here and I can pick any design I like and bring it in. So I've brought in one of the Precious Moments designs, and you can see I put this in here. So we could come in and have a lot of fun with doing an embroidered quilt, embroider the block, then go ahead and put your batting and backing and do all the quilting. Now we do have one other thing. I told you if you wanted to echo around to the edge of the block, I'm going to right mouse click and I'm going to create an outline. Remember how we had that outline around our embellishment? Well, I can get an outline around anything. So I could select my outline, and I could go ahead and I'm going to create an outline around the block as well. So there's my outline here. So again, we've got our outline around our little girl here. Here's our outline there. I'm going to hold down my control key, select the outline, perhaps around my little girl. Of mine, because I have 3 minutes left. Now, not even now. Let's come down here. I can select them here much easier. There are my two outlines. We're going to combine that, fill it in so you can get the look. Now, I could tell this to go ahead and echo quilt out to the edge of my design, and it's going to echo now my design all the way out. So you can echo your design, change your stitch length, change your density, have a whole lot of fun. We are at 6:59. I want to tell y'all I really appreciated you coming to my webinar. We hope you enjoyed My Decorative Quilter. Look for your block of the month. It will be up on the website. Probably in the next couple of weeks, we will have a block up for you. And every month, we're going to come up with some blocks and techniques for My Decorative Quilter. So I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned. I want to thank my moderators for all their help because they're the ones that are answering all of your questions and doing everything for you tonight. We want to thank Floriani, thanks you, and Walter, thanks you. Good night. Have a great evening.